Imagine a world where a man can get pregnant. But this isn't sci-fi. It's the bizarre, hilarious, and heart-wrenching story of Sergei, a news reporter from Russia. After years of trying to have a baby, Sergei's life takes a wild turn when he discovers he's the one expecting. How? Why? And what does it all mean for his marriage and career? Buckle up as we break down the wildest tale of fatherhood you'll ever hear. It's pretty typical for women to have kids, but this is a unique tale about a guy who ends up pregnant. Meet Sergei, a news reporter living in Russia with his wife, Dana. They've been trying to have a baby for 2 years now, but nothing's worked out. At the start of the movie, Sergei opens up to his therapist about their struggles. When the therapist asks about his sex life, Sergei beams and says they get busy every night. Yet Dana still isn't pregnant. He even tried switching things up, hoping a change of scenery would help, but no luck there either. The therapist hints that Sergei's thoughts might soon become reality, leaving him puzzled, but too curious to ask for clarification. On his way to work, he chats with his lawyer, buddy Zora, who's been on a losing streak with his last 8 cases and is in need of cash. Zora has 2 daughters and is also hoping for a son. After their talk, Sergei heads to the studio to kick off the show with his co-host, while Dana is at an art exhibition showcasing her photos. As usual, Sergei is running late. When he calls to say he's on his way, he thinks he's got it covered. But when he steps outside, he finds the police have towed his car for being parked illegally. Knowing his wife would see through his excuse, he skips the exhibition and heads to a bar with Zora instead. Zora shared during their chat that his wife was 1 month pregnant, and this time, he was quite excited. There was a belief in his family that they would have a boy since Zora had worn woolen shoes during their intimate moments. According to their unusual superstition, if a man wore woolen shoes while being intimate, it would result in a boy. Zora's father and grandfather had similar experiences. The following day was Valentine's Day, and Serge and Diana returned to the spot where they first met 5 years earlier. They had promised each other that they would come back to this place with their children one day. After everything settled down that night, Serge took off his woolen shoes and held them close, wishing for a child. Unable to sleep, he got up and looked out the window, praying for a baby. Just then, Mangi spotted a shooting star. 10 days later, Serge was hosting a program in his studio about a hen named Sonia. Sonia was a remarkable hen known for predicting football match winners by laying eggs. It was said that the number of eggs she laid matched the goals scored by the winning team. While reporting this news, Serge suddenly felt nauseous and had to apologize to everyone before returning to his work, still puzzled by his sudden illness that he was completely unaware. Later, while shopping at the market, he noticed a shelf filled with various pickles. Although he usually disliked sour flavors, today he felt an unusual urge to buy a whole jar of them. When he mentioned this to Zora, he teased him, saying, "Come on, you're not pregnant." However, Serge recalled the incident with the falling star and wondered if it was possible that he had somehow become pregnant from the cupboard at night. Curious, he decided to test his theory. Initially, he saw 2 lines on the test and assumed it meant he wasn't pregnant, but after checking the instructions on the back, he realized that 2 lines actually indicated he was expecting. He took the test a couple more times, but the recurring 2 lines seemed so bizarre that he eventually found himself laughing at the kid. The next morning, while having pickles for breakfast, Diana noticed his odd behavior and asked what was going on. When Serge revealed that he was going to be a father, Diana initially thought he had cheated on her and that another woman was the mother of his child. But when she learned that her husband was the one who was pregnant, her anger intensified. She couldn't decide if he was joking or if he had completely lost his mind. Sarge wanted Diana to be happy about his impending fatherhood, but he knew it would take time for her to accept this reality. Family gathered at his house for dinner one evening, and Sarge seized the moment to share the news of his pregnancy. The revelation left everyone in shock. They tried to calmly reason with him, insisting that a son wouldn't do something like this, that it simply wasn't possible. Frustrated, Sarge walked away in silence. His father then turned to his mother, blaming her for Sarge's situation, suggesting that the yoga she practiced during her pregnancy had somehow affected their son, leading him to feel like a woman inside. The next morning, Sarge picked up a pregnancy book and began searching for his symptoms. Setting everything else aside, he focused on preparing for the baby's arrival. After realizing that the baby was due in October, he quit smoking and started craving pickles. Over time, Diana came to terms with her husband's pregnancy and began caring for him. 4 months later, Sergei's belly began to grow. He attended pregnancy classes daily, pretending to be there to support his wife, and the others didn't question him too much, believing he simply wanted to experience motherhood. While his family was aware of his pregnancy, he chose to keep it a secret from the outside world. In the 5th month, he accompanied Diana to her first gynecologist appointment. But when the doctor learned that Diana was pregnant, he outright refused to conduct the checkup for Serge. He visited numerous doctors, but none were willing to take him on as a patient. Then, one day, he encountered Dr. Tikhonov, who had just opened his clinic 2 months prior and had yet to see a single patient. The clinic couldn't possibly thrive without patients, so he decided to take on Serge's case. The doctor instructed him to lie down on the delivery bed, but poor Serge was confused about how to position himself the next day at work. He soon discovered that Zora had sold his pregnancy story to a television channel driven by a desire for money, and now it was being broadcast everywhere. As the news spread, people became fascinated with the story of the pregnant man, and Serge gained worldwide fame overnight. This sudden attention infuriated Zora, who had wanted to keep it under wraps. On the streets and buses, people began to recognize him as the pregnant man, which made Serge feel like an oddity and left him feeling uneasy. He confronted Zora about it, but Zora showed no remorse. Instead, he boasted about even better ideas that could make them both millionaires. Initially, Serge was against it, vehemently declaring that he didn't want to exploit his pregnancy for profit. However, after some reflection, he began to see the potential in making money. From that point on, he started appearing on various TV programs and shows as the pregnant man. He even began promoting pregnancy-related products, and his popularity soared within weeks, attracting media attention wherever he went, including interviews with his family members. One day, while dining at a restaurant, a gay couple approached him with a question about how a man could have a baby. Serge was puzzled, as he had no clue about the mechanics of pregnancy. But he suggested they wear woolen shoes while sleeping, thinking it might help. They took his advice lightly. Later, during a visit to the doctor, they received the exciting news that they were expecting a son. Woolen shoes, he thought, were just for work. As they left the clinic, reporters swarmed around Serge again, bombarding him with questions, causing him to forget the joyful news he had just learned. Meanwhile, Diana felt neglected. Since Serge's rise to fame, he had been less affectionate towards her. Soon after, Serge landed his own show, where he encouraged women to become better mothers. The show was a hit and brought in a lot of money, but as his career flourished, he drifted further away from his wife and family. In one episode, Serge invited his family to a restaurant to discuss his pregnancy, but an upset Diana lashed out at the cameraman and stormed off. One by one, the rest of the family followed suit, leaving Serge alone for the first time in a long while. He realized that his newfound success had clouded his judgment, but before he could make amends, he faced protests from religious groups. As the backlash intensified, another television network accused him of fraud, claiming his pregnancy was a hoax and that he was profiting from deception. During the initial hearing, Zora struggled to find his voice, while the opposing lawyer presented compelling evidence, including details of Sergei's bank account, that highlighted the financial gains from his supposed pregnancy. At home, Zora urged him to abandon the chaos and return to a normal life, but Serge reacted angrily. In the second hearing, Zora brought Serge before the judge, revealing his belly and presenting the ultrasound report as proof to counter the allegations. The opposing attorney called Serge's gynecologist to testify in court. He contended that since Serge was the doctor's very first patient, the doctor lacked the necessary experience to handle such a complicated case. Instead, he presented research from highly experienced doctors who claimed that it is entirely impossible for a man to become pregnant. It appears those doctors are unaware of woolen shoes. Ultimately, it seemed like Serge was on the verge of losing the case. The day after an interview, when Serge returned home, he discovered that Diana had left. He felt numb, realizing he had mistreated her for quite some time. The only way to regain Diana's trust was to step away from all of this. At the next hearing, he chose not to attend court. Zora was taken aback, but he delivered a heartfelt speech about Sarge being a wonderful mother. The audience responded with applause, but then Sarge was called before the judge. Zora found a video and, without hesitation, decided to present it in court. However, after watching it, he felt as if the ground had vanished beneath her because Sarge admitted that his pregnancy was a hoax and expressed regret for anyone hurt by it. He also apologized to Diana, who had always stood by him. After hearing his confession, the judge labeled him a criminal and imposed a hefty fine of 10 lakh rubles. His supporters and fans were left disheartened. They met at his favorite spot, where he sincerely apologized for being a poor husband. She forgave him, but Sarge then realized it might be time to deliver the baby. He was quickly taken to the hospital, where doctors attended to him. During a C-section delivery, he managed to apologize to his entire family for his behavior over the past few months. Declaring that he had chosen love over fame, Diana gently hands the baby to Sarge, allowing him to hold his child for the very first time. Fast forward 3 years, and Diana is showcasing the photographs she captured during Sarge's pregnancy at an art exhibition. Her son, now a lively toddler, is happily playing with Zora's daughters. A few months later, Diana finds herself at the same window, wishing for twins. This time, 2 shooting stars streak across the sky, granting her wish, and both she and Sarge discover they are expecting at the same time. There's now a fondness for cozy woolen shoes like these. If you want to hear more stories, be sure to subscribe to the Cine Breakdown channel and let us know in the comments what your favorite moment was.